Let's Get Down to Business is presented by Bravo, the marketing arm of Ash Brokerage Corporation, the practice enhancement company. All this week, we've been talking about long-term care linked products. And on today's show, we're going to talk about accessing LTC benefits. And with me today, nationally recognized LTC linked product expert, Bradley Gerhardt. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, day 5, hey, Bradley, all this week, you've been hanging in there.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Well, I appreciate your knowledge, and your knowledge, I mean, there's LTC knowledge, and you are like, you got this thing down. I mean, you have deep, drilled down information and intel for our advisors. And I have to appreciate, there's about 4 or 5 monster program points throughout our programs this week that I think we may have to go back to the drawing board and rewrite a complete workshop to unpack these, because you say sometimes we're visual, we need to see the numbers, and I want to see them dance on a balance sheet. You know, I think that could be huge. Today I want to talk a little bit more human physiology. I mean, we talked about this earlier in the week. What triggers how can I access my benefits? And you said this thing about ADLs, activity of daily living.
Yes. So the common activities of daily living that are written into these contracts, bathing, dressing, toiling, transferring, and continence. That's really your 5 or 6 that you're going to get. They're with hands-on assistance. So it means that, for example, bathing, if we were to carve that out, it means that the inability to bathe oneself without hands-on assistance of another individual, either climbing into the tub, means you couldn't take just a sponge bath by yourself, that somebody else would literally have to help you the whole way. So, you know, when we talk about feeding and eating and things of that magnitude, we're talking about the same thing. The inability to make your own food, to feed yourself a proper diet, all of these things fall into effect.
So you named, what was the 6th one? Now you said the
bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring, continence.
Talk a little bit about continence.
Continence, you're talking about the inability to use the bathroom. So we're talking about somebody who can't control their bowel movements. You know, might have issues with prostate.
I might have to have an adult diaper.
Yeah, quite
okay,
possibly.
Well, I'm just trying to, Steve Savant, well, you might have to start thinking about that. But only 2 of these 6 can trigger. So you don't have to have them all.
No.
You don't have to have 4. 2 of the 6 triggers these events. And is there an elimination period generally in these contracts?
It depends on the type of contract that we use. It can be anywhere from 30 to 90 days. Some of them waive the elimination period for home health care, but it just depends on the contract that we use.
Okay, so it could be immediate, depending upon the contract. It could be up to 90 days. Does it pretty much not exceed that in its elimination period?
Yeah, it won't exceed that 90 days.
Okay, for link benefits?
Yeah.
Right, because I know on regular standalone, you could go up to 180 days, a year.
Yeah, and they say you might be even seeing longer elimination days on traditional products down the road. Yeah.
Well, when I'm looking at the elimination period, so whatever that is, 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it turns out to be, I have that elimination period, and I said, oh, I can't do two now, I need help. And hopefully again, my fantasy is help from home, right? So I say, hey, I'm having problems now. 2 of these things I cannot do myself. So do I need a doctor to say, yes, he can't do that?
Yeah, most of the time what happens is upon triggering or upon not being able to perform those 2 of 6, you'll file the claim. The doctor will write a note that says to the insurance company they can't perform the 2 of 6 activities of daily living, define those activities, and then the insurance company will send an individual out to observe over a daily period to see if that individual really can.
So every time a person actually triggers a claim, that actually happens?
Yes.
For all product lines?
Yeah.
So somebody's going to go out there and say, well, you can't fix your own meals any longer.
Yeah, so they'll send an individual from the insurance company to come out and observe. And off of their assessment, that's when the claim gets triggered.
They're not staying over at my house, right?
No, they'll come out for a few hours.
Okay,
yeah,
I got you. So I was just trying to figure out, hey, I can't bathe, and this guy's going to see me in my bathtub trying to figure out how I can't bathe.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
They can assess from afar.
Okay,
yeah.
they can. Okay, so, and that's usually a couple-hour observation, just trying to check it out. Okay, so most of the time, that's going to be okay. They're going to go back and say, yes, that person cannot perform it. I've noticed, I know, help me out here. I've noticed that a lot of most of the ADL claims are they not post 70, or are you starting to see stuff drift down into the 60s?
Most of the ones I've seen are post 60. Now, there is an advancement in earlier age claims, but that has more to do with the sports and the population of the world. Just more car accidents, more violence, more violent sports. Recently, there was a couple things brought up against professional football, for example, with concussions and dementia. So we are seeing a small step up in those younger ages, but that's something totally different. The older ages, though, is where we're really seeing those ADLs.
Now, of course, we're living a lot longer, and so the new demographic that we're looking at and tracking is the octarian, those in their 80s. I mean, think about this. We even actually issued policies at age 90 on life insurance. I mean, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
But when you think about octarian living, and we see this is when you start to see these ADL issues, these performance issues of it, daily activities. This is where it starts to wane. You can't do it anymore. So now I have the clearance, my doctor signed off, my insurance company vetted my client. He's now assured 2 ADLs. It triggers the event. Now he has to wait his elimination period.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first 90 days would be out of pocket. Now, there are different definitions to elimination periods. There's what's called service day. So it means you need 90 days of service before you actually receive benefit from the company, or you have 90 calendar days. So once you trigger the benefit and you take the reimbursement, it starts to clock on the calendar. So as you can see, if you do the math on the calendar day versus service day, calendar day could save you quite a bit of money out of pocket.
That's the things I want to know to be able to make sure I'm milking my contract. Well, when we come back from the break, we'll go ahead and summarize the entire week's worth of shows on this whole LTC linked products. And I'll show you how you can position your practice for the senior market using these kind of product lines. Don't forget, you can request your own long-term care manual right from Backroom Technician at our site, down to business.ashbrokerage.com, or just sign up for your own 30-day free trial offer from Backroom Technician at brtnow.com/trial signup.aspx. We'll be right back right after the break. Back in the day, life insurance professionals were called field underwriters. Then, carriers trained their field force in the basics of life insurance underwriting. Today, the insurance industry doesn't educate the agent population as they once did. But now you can have the Informed Risk Guide at your fingertips so you can illustrate a reasonable rate class for your life insurance prospects. Just request your copy of the Informed Risk Guide at downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. It's free from Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back. I'm Steve Savant with Bradley Gayhart. And remember, you can watch all our episodes of Let's Get Down to Business, including my weekly consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. And you can go right out to ashbrokerage.com. Just click on the show logo. It'll take you right out to our site. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, and of course, your broker-dealer compliance officer if you are so FINRA licensed. Well, let's get down to business. We're going to summarize a lot of what we talk about today because I like digest issues where I can kind of say, this is what we talked about. Oh, I didn't catch that show. I better go back and watch it. Yeah. Let's talk about, we talked about the evolution of the business way back in the day when we first actually formed ADLs. I mean, there was the definitions. Remember back in the Kennedy-Kassenbaum Act, that whole thing kind of made what we use today. That was kind of the boilerplate for this.
Yeah, well, that started the breakdown or the narrowing, so that we had kind of boilerplate definitions across the country, and didn't allow insurance companies or states to dictate what the different types of triggers would be for a long-term care event. So it definitely added some continuity to the industry.
From your professional point, because you've been in this game so long, are all our contracts, whether they're long-term care standalone and or long-term care linked benefits, are they pretty standardized on ADLs? This is it. After that act, it's standardized.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's not going to be much definition. This is like going to a DI policy and everybody's got a different definition on whatever it is.
Yeah, no, you're not going to run into that.
That's not a slight on DI. I'm just bringing it up. I didn't want Tim to call me. So when we talk about focus on leverage, I always like economic leverage. I like tax advantage leverage. I like economic viability. We were talking about this throughout the week. This is a powerful tool when people are sitting there on the fence. Well, I don't know if I'll use it. I don't know if I'll not use it. Well, here are some advantages that you may not have incorporated into it. How big is that issue as a talking point?
It's huge. It really allows people to understand that they have an asset that might eventually be a dead asset to them that they're holding in the bank, and it gives us the ability to leverage that asset and really arbitrage taxes, arbitrage or hedge against their portfolio income down the road, and supplement to any catastrophic event that might happen to them, where these other dollars are literally just sitting there and not really helping them in any magnitude.
I think it's really wise to always look through your portfolio every once in a while and look for these. He calls them dead assets, or I think the term we use sometimes in our security. These are non-performing assets.
Yeah.
So we're talking about them, and when you're talking about it, that leads me to the next thing. Until I started talking with Bradley, I didn't really quantify this as a balance sheet asset. I hate to say it. I just said it's an insurance issue. It's a holding tank full of money for you. It's for these insurance events like long-term care. But actually, after this week, you kind of convinced me this could be a very big player, an active, not a passive, but an active part of your portfolio. Inserting it in there can actually make really a lot of monetary sense.
Absolutely.
So when I look I'm kind of caught by that. And then the thing that really got me, and I wanted you to comment on this today because this to me is kind of cool. I would have thought that most high-end, affluent clients would have said, I'll just self-fund or I'll spend the money for a true long-term care standalone. And you told me, oh no, on the contrary, Steve, they're really going ahead and a lot of high affluent buy linked products.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
It's the guarantees that are built into these contracts. It's the guaranteed death benefit. It's the guaranteed leverage for long-term care. It's the availability of liquidity if they get these dollars back. Wealthy people usually got there because they understand leverage. And that's exactly what this product affords to them. It affords them the leverage to put a little bit down and get a significant benefit on the back end.
Well, let's step down from the affluent and talk about middle class to upper middle class people. If I use an annuity with this, I'm gaining some real power because a lot of our annuities today are conscious of mortality credits when they build in their incomes, their income streams, their income riders. Now we're talking about adding a new layer of leverage and a new layer of ability to bump my income up because of my long-term care event. Some of the very reasons why I bought an annuity, because it's really not built for a transfer issue to the next generation. We're supposed to be using this for our income during our time. So talk a little bit about and touch again and underscore this, an annuity, income, and now even a more leveraged income play.
So some of the newer annuities have long-term care riders that add to or supplement the income. I've seen them as high as 3 times leverage on the income. So it would take the $12,000 a year that you're receiving, the $1,000 a month, and increase that to $3,000 a month if you were to qualify through the benefit triggers, the 2 of 6 activity of daily living, or the severe cognitive impairment definition. You would now be receiving $36,000 a year as opposed to the $12,000 that you were receiving prior.
Well, give me a little futuristic view where all this is going. I mean, there's some cutting edge carriers that we have that are inventing. They're down in the bowels of the basement of these big companies, and the actuaries are sitting there in their chemistry sets figuring out what they can do to create. Where do you see this going, this whole long-term care linked benefits?
I think the field itself, the carriers that are still out there, they understand that they need to develop new products, that they need to figure out some evolutions. They understand mortality underwriting. It's clear and apparent. They have mortality underwriting down.
I kind of get the mortality side of the life annuity, but I got life and annuity actuaries writing morbidity LTC riders.
Yeah.
I always think, are you guys all on the same page?
Yeah, so I think if I were to view in or peer into the future, I think you're going to see more mortality underwritten products that link in the morbidity underwriting to fund long-term care events.
I want to see it because we're going to need it. Well, that's our show for all this week. Remember, you can read all my online insurance news commentaries, advisor blogs, and articles on Producer's Web, as well as my answers to consumer questions on the Insurance Library. And don't forget, you can view any of our past episodes on our on-demand section at downtobusiness.ashbrokers.com. Hey, if you want to just follow me, just check me out on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or just email steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. And remember, you could be wiser as an Ash Brokerage advisor.